All right.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? Will the real Slim Shady please stand up?
There was a specific
I repeat,
verse
will
that
the real
really
Slim
jumped
Shady please stand? Walking around grabbing his you know what, flipping and you know who. Yeah, but he's so cute though. Yeah, I probably got a couple of screws up in my head loose, but no worse than what's going on in your parents' bedrooms. Sometimes I wanna get on TV and just let loose, but can't. But it's cool for Tom Green to hump a dead move. My bum is on your lips, my bum is on your lips, and if I'm lucky, you might just give it a little kiss. And that's the message that we deliver to little kids, and expect them not to know what a woman is. Of course, they're gonna know what an course is by the time they hit fourth grade. They got the Discovery Channel, don't they? We ain't nothing but mammals. Well, some of us cannibals who eat other people open like animals. But if we can hump that.
So you get the idea of what type of rapper Eminem actually is. So today I will be talking to you about basically the legal ramifications of rap music, and how people deal with it, in society. There's been cases of people, blaming their actions on rap music. There's been cases of, they're listening to rap music and doing a crime, and people have tried to bring that as a factor, and has led to stuff like the parental advisory sign, and censorship. So today I'll be talking to you about like music censorship and the First Amendment in courts and stuff, and how that's affected rap music, where it might go, and so forth. Hip hop has definitely been a verbal revolution since its beginning. And so yeah, like hip hop is very political, and it has gone more political over the years. I guess until you get to Future, and now it's just about partying and stuff. But these guys definitely used to challenge society with their lyrics, and they believed that they could do so because they were protected under the First Amendment. But in history, since the '60s and stuff like that, Black people have had a very hard time with their rights, and so they were always feeling oppressed, and it came out through this art form. So I'd like to start with a case involving one of the most famous rappers of all time, Tupac, and that is Ronald Howard versus the state of Texas. So basically, Ronald Howard, he's had some priors already, but he was driving a car and he gets pulled over by a cop, and he's blasting Tupac Shakur Soulja Story, and that song is about someone in the song killing a cop as he walks up to him. And so basically what happened was the cop walked up to the car, and this guy got his gun out and blasted the cop. So when in the trial, he tried to give responsibility of his actions to Tupac's song, and this case really put rap music on trial in those times. And there was news headlines like rap music has become a tool to destabilize democracy. This was in a pro-cops essay on rap music. There was two sides to it, right? There was the side that was pro-cop and saying, yeah, he's right, rap music was the cause of this. Or there's a side, the artists themselves and other liberals and, the free speech commissions that were in place in time. There was that side that said that rap music should not be on trial. It's protected under the First Amendment. So basically the result of this case was that the judge agreed, and that rappers and rap music should not be the one on trial. It should never be held responsible for crimes of this nature, and stuff similar to this situation. So it became a precedent case that people can look up to. Next, let's talk about another famous rap group called NWA. And NWA was really about fighting the oppression against of the LAPD against the black communities of LA. Things were very much segregated even in their times. They were talking about like there was actual kind of borders drawn between white communities and black communities by the LAPD and stuff. So there was a lot of that stuff going around. Eventually, it reached a boiling point, and they released a song called "F the Police." It's one of the most famous songs in rap music, and so the song contained very strong lyrics about promoting, I guess, quote unquote police brutality and stuff like that. And so they themselves came on trial within society's eyes, and but they still stuck to their music. Like in the show in Detroit, the FBI had actually said, or the Detroit police said that if they played that song, if they did that song on stage, then they'll be arrested. They were like, you know what, screw it, we're going to do it anyway, and they wanted to use it as a form of symbolic speech that, they don't care, they're going to fight for their rights. And so they did it anyway, and luckily they got out before they could get arrested. So that was good. They definitely won this battle because the general consensus, according to the ACLU chairman, was that it is completely against American tradition of free speech that government agencies criticize art. So that was another famous case. Here's a weird one where, it's more recent, and this guy named Anthony Elenis, I guess, was having problems with his wife, and he posted very, explicit lyrics on Facebook that were targeting his wife and a nearby kindergarten. An example of this in this picture: "I'm not going to rest until your body is a mess, soaked in blood and dying from all the little cuts." So they were pretty explicit, and what in his case he tried to say, "Oh, I'm an aspiring rapper, and these are simply lyrics." So the case was to try to prove if these lyrics were good enough or protected by the First Amendment, or did they constitute something known as a true threat, where it's obviously blatantly known that this person is threatening someone and their safety, or this safety policy within the schools. So obviously, like these lyrics did seem very explicit to the school in the state. So they did seem to constitute a true threat within the court. Here's another interesting tidbit about rap music in schools. So like you probably heard like people bumping rap music and stuff, maybe quoting lyrics and stuff like that. So I wanted to see into the question of how schools, what policy do schools usually have for rap music. So here's a case called Bell versus Itawamba County School Board, in which Taylor Bell heard that two teachers were molesting like two of his female friends, and giving them talking bad to them and stuff like that. So what he did was, being an aspiring rapper, he posted a YouTube video about those two teachers, and he blatantly named them in the song. He posted a rap song about that, and when the school heard it, they suspended him. So he took the school to court, saying that they violated his First Amendment rights, being an aspiring rapper. And in this case also, they eventually decided that his lyrics were so targeted towards a single person that they weren't protected. So they upheld the school board's suspension. So this case shows that schools, in the court's eyes, have special authority over free speech and speech codes than other public institutions. So there are some cases in which rap music can legally screw you up, basically, if you do it wrong, and if you're implying harm and true threat to a single person. But if it's like something in general and not targeting anyone, then it is definitely protected as an art form. So these are my references, and that's it.
Alright, this is gonna be an issue.
All right, Carlos, what did you think?
I thought you had really good references, to talk about the revolution. And I think his transitions were pretty good. Just that sometimes he stopped a little bit. And that's what made it not flow correctly. And the visual aids did help, what he was talking about, we have something to see. I think that's it.
All right. I think you need to have the video queued up to the spot that you want it to be at the beginning, so that would make it go a little bit quicker. You end up going almost 2 minutes over time, and part of that is because your video is, you show us about 1.5 minutes of the video, and you really only needed, 20 seconds of it that you wanted, so you need to edit that a little bit more for use in the presentation. The topic is identified pretty clearly. I know what the subject matter is. Your thesis, I think, is a little problematic. It still needs to be formulated in a way that is sharper. But I think the topic's interesting, and your audience is probably going to be appreciative of it. Ultimately, the speech gets structured around the 4 cases that you mentioned, and I think that that's what your preview ought to consist of. You ought to tell us about, I'm gonna trace 4 important cases concerning rap music and legal entanglements that they encountered. The first one where you're talking about the guy using Tupac's lyrics as a defense, that, although the idea that rap is on trial in some situation there, the truth of the matter is the guy was on trial and he was just using that as an excuse for his behavior, and it's not like Tupac was being sued in any particular situation or was any in legal jeopardy. So you want to make sure that you give the context a little bit more. You tell us about the event, but you're not giving us enough of the context for us to understand what's happening in that particular situation. The NWA issue, I think you've got some information there that is probably important and accurate, but I do think you need a source citation. The idea that the Detroit Police Department could issue a preemptive injunction on what some band could perform in a public venue, that's definitely, there are constitutional issues about that. That happened, I think we need to have the source citation on it, that whether it was an official threat or whether it was somebody mouthing off because they didn't like the lyrics of the song, that's a different issue. The ACLU quote is the one thing that you've got there that I thought was a citation on that particular information, and you needed to have a little bit more of that kind of thing in the material that you've got. The other cases, the same sort of thing. I do think you need to give a little bit more citation. The issue of the speech in the school situation, there is a long history of free speech cases that deal with students' rights as, to expression, because they do come in conflict sometimes with the expected order of the experience there and what the function of the classroom is. And so, although students don't give up their rights to free speech at the schoolhouse gate, so to speak, there are some legitimate restrictions that schools are allowed to impose, and this sounds like it's a test case on that. Although the way you described it, it sounds like he was doing a song that's revealing that some crime is being taken place, because he's the guy. There are teachers who are molesting the students That if they're molesting students and there's a crime going on and he ought to be writing a song about it isn't what's appropriate. Calling the cops should be what's going on, or is it something else that they were simply harassing students? It was not clear to me what was going on in that situation, and that's another place where you probably want to use direct quotes. You're kind of paraphrasing your interpretation of what happened in those events, and I think sometimes it gets a little bit muddled, and it would be clearer if you used more direct quotes there. The Prezi presentation primarily works as transitions between the points, so we're knowing you're going from case to case because you're swooping in with a new picture or image on each one of those cases. So it helps organize this a little bit more than your content did. It's helping keep track of those things. That's not a bad use of visuals. It's actually fairly productive in this situation. I do think that, like I said, you needed to be a little bit more controlled about the introductory material so that it gets to the point. And I didn't really, it sounded like you had a particular lyric that you wanted us to hear. I don't even know what that lyric was from the Slim Shady video, that kind of thing. So I'm sure that there was something there that I was supposed to be paying attention to, but you don't highlight it afterwards or tell us or remind us why that was important. And it never comes up as one of the examples that you're talking about later on, so it feels a little bit out of context. Maybe more discussion about how the whole idea of lyrical content is controversial as a backup would explain why it's there in the first place. The one other thing I think that you did really well is, for the most part, you are speaking to the audience. I appreciate that. You're not trying to be overly dependent on the notes. You're trying to connect with us and talk to us. That you have the lights off makes it a little bit difficult to see some of that. That it's hard to relate to you. I'm not sure that any of your images required the lights being off. I think they were probably large enough and sharp enough. Maybe a little bit of the text in some of the slides that you had, but even then I didn't think that it was a big problem with the text, and you could probably get away with leaving the lights on. Don't be afraid of turning the lights off if you need it to, but if you leave them off the whole time, people are going to want to go to sleep. So it might, another one of those advanced preparation things, maybe you talk to somebody sitting over by the lights and ask them to turn the lights on and off when you need them. And that everybody can do that, by the way, and that's not just for you, that's for everybody. All right, thank you.